We should be encouraging arts, especially theatre, and we should be finding more ways to do that rather than suppressing it. I know it was a hard time for all of us, but concessions were given for all the other things, which were not that necessary, but still they were given the concession. And something as important as theatre, art, that was neglected. And I suffered a lot because of it. And I hope that by supporting theatre, by supporting art, government can do much more.
If other crowded places like gyms, malls, temples, and other religious places can be open, then why not theaters where we can actually follow the social distancing norms?
I'm not a huge fan of it, so I don't support it that much, and I don't think it will prevail because for real theater lovers, it's the live performance which matters, and because there's always a connection between the audience and the actors performing on stage.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSJC TV. I'm Yashna, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's panel. So, the discussion today will focus mainly on two things. Was it a good decision to reopen theaters in the middle of a pandemic? And what is the future of the performing arts and artists? Is theater going to move online? Is it feasible? So let me introduce my esteemed panel today, which consists of very respected actors, directors, writers, and playwrights. And I myself have had the honor of sharing the stage with three of them many years ago. So let me introduce the panelists. So first up, we have Ankur Anand, who is a theater actor, a
Hello, everyone.
director. And then we have Michelle Agresti, who's joining us from LA, and she's a theater actress, she's a voiceover artist. Then we have Zorian Cross, who's a playwright, a director, an actor, and a writer. And we have Dhruv, who is an actor. He's been acting
Hello.
on stage since the age of 5, I think. And he's now the manager of the Akshara Theatre. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. And my first question is directed at Dhruv. So, from September 21, as part of the Unlock 4.0 guidelines, the Ministry of Home Affairs had allowed open air theatres to resume operations. Now, open air theatres were allowed to open at 50% capacity. But is Delhi prepared and equipped to reopen theatres since the Akshara Theatre has been having shows since October? I just wanted to ask Dhruv that as the manager of the Akshara, uh, have you observed the audience members following social distancing properly? Are people taking precautions? And in your opinion, was this decision made hastily, or was it perhaps a good decision to reopen theaters?
Well, I think there are two things over here. One is that I think it was a great decision to open up the theaters in the sense that we're artists, this is our life, this is our work, we know nothing else. And the only way we can perform is by being on stage in front of a live audience. I have been acting for 15 years now, and I know nothing else but acting. So it is also my source of income. And if you take that away, I have no other option because doing something online is just not the same sport. It doesn't give you the same feel, and it can't, financially support you the way being on stage does. So I think it was an important decision. A lot of actors needed to be on stage because this is all they know, this is their life. And the government did understand that an artist needs the stage, and I respect them for coming forward and opening the theaters because we needed that source of income to sustain. I've got 25 employees, I've got 10 actors, I need to pay them. How do they survive? So it was essential for them to open these theaters for us to continue just being able to live and eat food and earn on a daily basis. However, I
Right.
think there's a flip side. The flip side is that when you're on stage, your actors, a lot of the time the actors end up not wearing masks. They end up, you can't be socially distant while you're on stage. So
Right.
during a lot of rehearsals, I noticed the actors were not wearing masks. They were sharing food, sharing cigarettes. They had to be intimate on stage. And I think that is an area where it sort of is risky because then it sort of spreads the pandemic. Another issue is a
Yeah.
lot of the audiences are being casual, they're sort of getting
Hmm.
complacent. Things are normalizing, so they end up
Hmm.
coming, taking off their masks, socializing with one another, and that is a bit
Exactly.
of a red flag.
Yeah, like I remember you had Veerdas over at Akshara, I think
Yeah,
last month, and
right.
I mean people weren't really, following social distancing, and I mean how can you, you can never monitor each and every person. So
Right. So we as a venue were doing our best. We were providing masks to everyone. We were providing face shields. But out
mhm,
of 20 people, there are always 5 to 8 people who abuse that or don't, maintain it. So a lot of people did
right,
do that eventually. They took off their masks between the play. Certain families started sitting together even though we had set seats apart. So for
exactly.
example, our amphitheater has 300 seats and we restricted it to 100 seats. So everyone is really far apart. But I mean, some people,
Mhm.
they put their chairs close to each other. Couples did that. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that sort of is very risky for everyone, not just them.
Yeah, yeah,
So it becomes very hard to maintain in this pandemic in those senses.
right, right. So my next question is to Ankur. So, Ankur, you moved to Bombay from Delhi a couple of years ago to further your career in acting. But now you've decided to move back to Delhi. Was this decision prompted by the issues you and several other actors in Bombay were facing due to the pandemic, like economic issues because of the temporary closure of theaters? Or was it something else altogether?
See, Yashna, uh, economic wise, yes, definitely that was one of the main reason. But there were other couple of reasons. One was personal, that I'm the only child, so my
Okay.
parents didn't want me there. So that's why I had to come back.
Yeah.
And definitely the closure of theaters, it impacted a lot. Like uh, the decision which I took, it was because of, mainly because of this. Because see, all the
Okay.
theaters were closed. There was no decision from government side. There was no decision when the vaccine will arrive or not, or when this pandemic will get over. And the gathering of people, basically, that was the restricted part. So I had to
Yeah.
take a decision because I was losing out on all my savings. And right before the pandemic, it was
Hmm.
going really very well. My theater side was going really very well. I had like 7 book my show performances there. And I had a multi-city
Hmm.
tour of theater, like right before, it was in January
Wow.
Feb. Yes. And right after that,
Okay.
from March onwards, there was a complete lockdown. And after 2 3 months, I started realizing that this will go nowhere. I have to do something. I have to take a decision. Otherwise, I will lose out
Hmm.
on all my savings, and then I don't know what can happen then. So, and my parents
Yeah.
started,
Yeah.
like, they were worried, basically. And I have
Mhm.
such a
Of course.
strong theater background, so I thought
Yeah.
coming back to Delhi won't, like, it's not a bad decision at all. So I thought I should come back.
Okay.
I have theater friends here, theater group here, and I have done all my theater uh, journey started from here only, Delhi. So it
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
wise decision, I would say.
So, coming to the online format of plays, would you personally consider converting a play to the into the online format?
See, Yashna, I would definitely love to do that, but
Hmm.
I will never say this, that online theater online
You'd
theater
never choose
platform
it
will take
over.
over the live theater, because live theater has its own charm, and
Of
basically it's
course.
an
Yeah.
experience. Everyone
Yeah.
everyone knows that. But this new branch which is coming out from a great, like, if theater is like a tree, huge tree, then this is a branch which is just coming out. Okay, and
Yeah.
I would definitely love to explore it. It can coexist with the current
Mhm.
scenario, but it can never take over. Like, what's happening right now is like, traditional theater cinema and the OTT platforms, they are like having neck to neck together, and now OTT is trying to take over. And There are different groups which are saying something else and something else, and but in theater zone it can never happen like that. Live theater is the source of livelihood to so many artists, various kinds
Yeah,
of artists,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
it has its own charm. So basically it can but definitely I would love to explore, because this is something, very unique format. People have never thought about it before the pandemic,
Yeah.
that a theater can be done live, and there must be some performances must have happened, but I don't think so, because see, theater is something which is happening all across the country, like everywhere. Okay,
Mm,
in US, here, in London, UK, everywhere. So people can connect from different various places, and then we all can have a collective form of this
right.
artistic performance together. So in that
Right.
regards, yes, we can explore. It has some potential, but that can be. It's very early to say right now, but we can explore it definitely.
Okay. Thanks, Ankur. So, talking about that, I wanted to ask Michelle. So, Broadway is the biggest theater industry in the world, which not only generates billions of dollars in revenue, but it also supports hundreds and thousands of artists, technicians, designers, and other ancillary workers. And now it isn't reopening till late summer 2021. So, how have you survived this pandemic?
So, as far as how I have survived, myself, like a lot of other actors and people who work in the industry, I do have another job. I also work as a tutor. So, that has definitely been going just as strong during the pandemic, albeit from home and over Zoom. But more importantly than that, I actually am a voiceover artist, as Yashna has introduced me. And voiceover has been able to continue pretty well during the pandemic because we can control studio settings. You're really quite expected actually to have a home setup. So where a lot of us are expected to have like a mic set up in our own homes that we can record auditions from and also record professionally from. So voiceover has been doing just fine during this pandemic. And actually, you'll probably find that a lot of new releases, at least coming from Hollywood and coming from LA, are cartoons. People have been doing a lot more animation just this year just to kind of make up for it. Now, Broadway has been shut down and off-Broadway has been shut down. Theater has really not been happening. Different organizations have provided relief to actors and also other theater professionals, but our government, like the United States government in general, hasn't really done very much outside of like one check in the spring. So people are just really struggling. People are in unemployment and just kind of waiting for the theater industry to open up again, trying to work their side gigs, trying to find side gigs. The film industry has been chugging along. You know, people are still making deals. Of course, I just pointed out that voiceover is really still happening, and like things like commercials and TV shows are still shooting. I mean, I would say that the film industry here is probably around like maybe 1/3 capacity, maybe 1/6 capacity of what it normally is. But the big productions by the big studios that have a lot of money and a lot of resources to like really do all of the COVID protocols, get everybody tested every day, those productions are still happening.
Okay. And again,
so people,
speaking, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was about to say, so definitely some way that like theater professionals have been surviving, have been, you know, working on film sets, working on film and working on voiceover and working on other things like that.
So again, talking about online theater. So one of the biggest steps taken by theater companies in 2020 was putting their work online and moving to the digital space. So do you think this is a viable option for theater artists? And I mean, what is the future of American theater according to you?
The future of American theater. Well, the way that the online theater and Zoom theaters have been going is, you know, it's okay. Like I know a lot of theaters, a lot of theater companies have been doing kind of like almost fundraisers by doing a Zoom show, or like they'll put up a Zoom link that like people only get the password to. Like some pretty good theaters in New York have been doing that, like MTC, Manhattan Theater Club, has had some kind of successful runs. But I mean, the reality of it is that theater, as many of the other people on this panel have said, is a in-person thing, right? When it's on the computer, when it's abstracted, well, now it becomes film, right?
Yeah.
And the film industry can kind of still work during the pandemic. However, people are getting vaccinated in America in 3 days. I personally know 2 people who are receiving the vaccine on Wednesday. We're turning a corner. The whole world is turning a corner on this pandemic, and we're going to be out of it, and things are going to open up again. And I really think that's the future. But actually, yes, I have been thinking about the future of American theater. And one of the things I'm thinking about is Broadway in particular, because Broadway is based in New York City. And during the pandemic, a lot of New York has emptied out. And there's been a lot of talk of like, well, what's New York going to be like after the pandemic? Are people going to flee the city? Are we going to get like a lot of very high income people? Are they going to leave New York? And that's kind of the question, is that if we have a lot of people leaving New York, and we definitely do now, and I think that will continue in the future. I definitely think New York's become kind of like less of a hub. And like, I don't know about you guys, but the United States in general has become less of a desirable country to move to. So I'm wondering that when those people empty out, who's going to move back in? Rents are going to get lower. I think we might kind of have a bit of a creative renaissance in New York City itself, because it's not just the people who are making theater in New York, right? It's the people who are going to theater. So it's like the tastes of the people who are buying theater tickets in New York are also dictating what kind of theater is on the stages. So let's say New York isn't as big as of a tourism hub as it used to be. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but let's say it isn't. Maybe we won't have like a bunch of Disney musicals. Maybe there'll be some other stuff that'll move in. And that's, I think, what I'm really excited about.
Okay. Thanks for that, Michelle. So now I wanted to ask Zorian. So as a playwright and director, what have you felt about theater moving into the online platform? And if you do take the online route as a director or playwright or producer, your stage will be a screen ranging from a 7-inch mobile screen to a 52-inch TV screen. So will these dimensions influence the way you write your scripts in the future? I mean, wouldn't you then have to learn an entirely new language of performance, presentation, and technique?
Well, I'll be very honest. I really don't want to make the shift into Zoom theater because I've seen a few, not by choice, but by, circumstances. And they were terrible. I mean, they were. I mean, I don't want to sound bitchy or whatever, but it's just that, see, when you're writing for the stage versus when you're writing for the screen, okay, for TV, for movies, you have things which can be edited together to make the pace. The entire magic of a screen is all in editing, but in theater, it's all about being live. It's all about being
Exactly,
immediate.
yeah.
And the other thing is, some of the directors I've seen use those virtual background thingies. They really don't work because the actor moves the hand fast, the hand disappears, the hair disappears, half the face disappears. So it's so bad. I mean, I'd rather have people laughing along to the joke of my play rather than laughing at the terrible production values of the play. And the other thing is I think Dhruv said that, sometimes actors have to be intimate in a scene, like not just, romantically intimate, but intensely intimate in many ways. So how do you do that on Zoom? How can you build that chemistry? I mean, also, if let's say people are watching a play on the phone, what if they get a phone call in the middle? What if they, get notification dings? Like imagine someone getting Instagram DMs and not turning them on mute, and then the other actors getting distracted by that noise. It's like
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, I am still being very patient, and hopefully the vaccine comes in and theaters open up again. Because I think, whatever said and done, yes, there are a lot of people watching Netflix. Yes, more people are watching online shows, whatever. But at the end of the day, nothing beats a live theater performance. Like, half
True.
the reason why I visit New York and London regularly is because I get to see some of my favorite actors on stage up close and personal. Like, I think my favorite experience was in New York. It was seeing Billy Porter in the original cast of Kinky Boots. Just being so close to the stage and watching him perform live was invigorating on so many ways. In London, I saw Judi Dench in The Winter's Tale. I saw Nicole Kidman in Photograph 51. And that's the thing about live theater. It brings you into that intimate space with your favorite performers. It helps you build a
Yeah.
connection which a screen can never do.
And
And
also, one important aspect of moving online is the cost aspect. So, will it not make doing a play more expensive because of hiring equipment and technicians for shooting and post production?
again, that basically makes it a film at the end of the day because it is what it is, right? It's a film at the end of the day. It's just going to be, it's not theater then, it's film. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's not theater. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit of a purist. I mean, I'm all for doing crazy things on a stage, but then a stage is its medium. A film or a TV show is its own medium. If we start, removing these blurry, if we start removing these sort of distinction markers, then we might just end up compromising one art form in favor for the other, right?
Mhm.
And yes, I
Yeah.
agree that we live in Delhi, which is basically Karen Central when it comes to mask wearing, and people do remove their masks. It is like people are just roaming about Delhi. The rates are rising, but they just want to roam around because they can't breathe in a mask. I'm like, why the fuck are we in Karen Central? But I'm sorry, am I allowed to swear on this?
No, you're not.
I don't think so.
See, another reason why I love the theater because on camera there's so many restrictions and censorship even. But yeah, again, the cost aspect will go up. It does become a play. It becomes a film at the end of the day. If we're doing like a Zoom conference play, I'll have to then, from the production point of view, send lights to every actor's house, send a background to every actor. It just becomes all the more cumbersome. I mean, the whole point of theater, at least for independent artists like me, is to with minimal resources, create something beautiful. I think like when I worked with Nissan Swan Song, the only cost I had was costumes. The rest was just basically her standing on stage, delivering that one actress musical monologue throughout. And it was the most beautiful experience because it was something so intimate, which you can't get with a monologue on camera is nothing versus a monologue on stage because you build that intimate bond. On camera, you'll then have to, use the fancy angles, the little editing things to get the audience to be captivated on screen. But on stage, when you build that soul to soul connection, it's just so. Um, I'm trying to think of a better word
Amazing.
than intimate, but that's the thing. It's that intimate connection between performer and audience, which you can never get on an online screen or even in a movie. That's why,
Right.
nowadays movie theaters have to have 3D glasses and use tons of CGI. Now they have like 40x screens where people would bounce up and down and have water splash on them just to feel like they're part of the movie. With live
Mhm.
theater, you don't need all that. You just need a great performer, a great writer to collaborate and just wow the audience. Although I
Yeah.
will say, Netflix's animated shows like Big Mouth and so many others have kept me sane during the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that goes for all of us. But I'm afraid that's all the time we have today, and I can't thank you all enough for coming and taking out your time. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
us, Yashna.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Yashna. Thank
guys.
you so much. Bye.
Uh,